Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
I love creepy girls. I would like to have a clingy, violent Yandere girlfriend. Is that weird?
A few years ago I was on the outs with a very dependent girlfriend. What started out as just casual dating turned into her practically living at my house, needing to constantly be in contact with me, and always trying to spy on my social media accounts. She was extremely depressed and used my sympathy as a weapon to keep pulling me back whenever one of her crazy actions would push me away. It took my stupid younger self a long time to see the pattern. When I finally did and she realized that she was losing me, she ran over my dog thinking that the grieving process would bring us back together. The worst part is, it kind of did. The pain of having to drive my dog to the vet and put him down was too much for me to handle on my own, and for once, she was there for me instead of the other way around. Until a few weeks later when she drunkenly admitted what she had done. I have never been so mad about anything. I was raised never to raise my hand to women, but my morals were seriously tested at that point. I couldn't get the trip to the vet to put the little guy down out of my head. How could this person that I loved have done something so psychopathic? I threw all her shit out and had to physically remove her from my house. I filed a restraining order, but before it went through, I had to threaten to press charges just to keep her away. I haven't talked to her since. I feel bad for anyone that gets caught up in her psycho shit. I thought she loved me, but that really led me to wonder if she was some kind of sociopath who had been playing me for a fool the whole time.
My ex also is borderline and schizophrenic, and was prone to similar fits of rage. One time, I was in the kitchen at her apartment and she got raging angry at me over something minor. When I wouldn't play along with her stupid, "I'm angry, now pay attention to me" game, she punched the refrigerator, breaking all of her fingers and knuckles. She required extensive and specialized surgery to fix it all, including a bunch of pins and rods. I should have left her then, but I was stupid. She promised changes that never came or came only for a brief time, and I ended up taking care of her after the surgery. Like others here, her opinion of me could fluctuate from her thinking I was the best person in the world to thinking I was lower than shark shit. If I made any moves that she perceived as abandonment, there was hell to pay, much like people describe above. At first, it was only occasional. But in time, the crazy got way worse. The worst was when she began going floridly psychotic. It started slowly. One day, I pick her up, and she gets in the car looking angry. I ask her what's up. She says, "I want to know what you're doing with all the money." At the time, I was a student, and didn't really have much money, so I was like, what money? Her response: "Don't play stupid." The conversation went this way for about half an hour before I said, "Okay. You have to tell me what the fuck you're talking about because you're not making sense." She then began to tell me that she knew I had put video cameras all over her apartment to broadcast her on the internet, something for which I was supposedly charging people a lot of money. I had no secret cameras in her place, or anywhere. She described a complex scenario where various friends and even her brother were involved. We were all out to get her, to profit from her, to expose her to the world in what she called her most private moments. Those private moments would have included her riding my like she was on some mechanical bull, which, in retrospect, was one of the main reasons I put up with her shit way longer than I should have. Fucking crazy, crazy fucking. Over the course of about a month, she got crazier day by day. The plot in her mind got more complex and convoluted, more people involved, etc. At this point, I decided that not even frequent wild fucking was worth this shit, and I distanced myself, which made her even crazier. One night, my phone rings at 4 a.m. She's crying hysterically. I can't understand a fucking thing she's saying. I finally get her to breathe, and she tells me that she has punched and broken every mirror in her apartment because she was looking for cameras, and because she got tired of the people in the mirror fucking with her. She continued to tell me that she was untying herself with the glass, bleeding a lot, and didn't care if she died. Now, I never like to bring law enforcement into my life unless absolutely necessary, but I fucking called 911, told them she was likely going to self-end herself, and that they needed to get over to her place. I went over after I called. I know, stupid, but I felt bad for her. Sure, she was nuts and fucked with me, and threatened me many times with violence, but I didn't want her to self-end, and 911 in the city I live in is sometimes really slow. I arrived at the same time as the cops. They asked me to come in with them, which honestly surprised me. She wouldn't answer the door, so they broke it down, and went in, me following behind once they gave the go-ahead. She was under the bed, totally naked, crying and screaming at them, blood everywhere. She was taken to the hospital forcibly, but somehow not committed, which I still cannot believe. I've gone on too long already, so I'll wrap this up with a word of advice. Familiarize yourself with the symptoms of borderline personality disorder, ANONs, and if you see these signs in a woman, or a man, femanins, run like hell and don't look back. There's no sex that's worth this kind of nuts. It fucks you up, too, no matter how strong you think you might be. The kind of damage this kind of person can do to your life is more extensive than you can ever imagine in your sane head. I have only given a glimpse here. Like others can attest to, a relationship with a person like this is fucking insidious in a million different ways. Be careful what you wish for.
Exact same Psycho X bullshit here. Date for 1.5 years. At first it's very much a roller coaster, as she can't decide if she wants to be with me or not, so I say fuck it and walk away, only to have her beg me to come back. So things stabilize for a week, then we have sex, and I learn on the fly about her past trauma wherein she can't have any sort of liquid making physical contact with her without freak out. For some reason, I'm still game to work through it with her. Then, I find out, she's beat. Throwing away clothes and objects she thinks I touched because I contaminate things. She comes over, I tell her I can't do it anymore, I say we can be friends but I'm not qualified to deal with the intimacy issues. She sits silently in my room for an hour before leaving, then later I'm in bed, hear banging on my window. It's her. I stupidly agree to let her in and she negotiates her way back into my life saying things will be different, lie. Really shitty year of isolated, needy dating, and I'm done for real. That was 6 years ago. Since then I've had to change my phone number of 10 years, my email address, I've stopped registering my address with any government agency to avoid having it listed anywhere, I use pseudonyms when able for the same reason, I've got 100 plus full pages of incidents, emails, texts, cops have records of all this stuff. Months of daily harassment, things being left at my doorstep, threats of violence, etc. There is nothing more unattractive to me now than mental instability. Sucks, I had to learn firsthand why you don't get involved with crazy people.
I just had to call the cops and get a fucking restraining order on my last girlfriend, because she was sitting outside of my house at night watching me. Would show up at my office and leave gifts. This is weeks after we broke up. She drove past me at night while I was walking home and no one was around, rolled down her window, kept pace with me while I was walking and looked at me. She said, "I am going to throw acid in your face one day so no one else will ever love you," then drove off. Yeah, you can have her, all fucking day brother. Huge fear of abandonment, used to do the exact same shit. I lived with this woman for 3 years and it has taken me literally months to get her out of my life. I contacted her family and they said they were going to have to come convince her to move back across the country and that they would handle it. Apparently this is not the first time she has gone batshit crazy on a dude. She used to smash things that were precious to me for no reason. start making wild accusations out of nowhere that would end with me saying, "Fuck it, I'd rather live on the streets." I'd bounce and she'd blow up my phone with 100,000 texts and calls saying, "I love you. I'm sorry, I'll change." But I always knew she was full of shit. I'd always take her back. She used to cut herself too, fucking deep. I could go on for hours about the blind fits of rage and physical violence I endured. She used to say the most psycho hurtful shit to try and goad me into hitting her. I never did, but that bitch came close to being fucking hospitalized a few times. I had to plan shit out so very carefully, as I did fear for my life. She knew it too and said if I ever did try to leave she'd hunt me down and kill me then herself. I still believe that to be true. She said she would tell the cops I had assaulted her and done a bunch of terrible shit to her so they would throw me in jail and that way she'd always know where I was. I had to skim money off of my paychecks for fucking months. She watched the finances like a hawk, and do little side jobs and shit. I managed to save up enough to get a down payment on a new place to rent. After that I had to time out my move just right. I told my boss what I was going through and she knew a dude with a truck who could help me. Boom, it's fucking on like Donkey Kong. I told my boss I was moving, that she would need to beef up security at the office because shit was going to get real. Because I was fucking moving in secret, I had nothing packed the day I moved. The window I had to move all my worldly possessions was exactly 2 hours before she came home. I had to slam everything into hefty bags and haul it to the pickup truck. I left a big screen TV, sectional couch, king-sized bed, brand new oversized oak bedroom set and a shit ton of other stuff that I just didn't have the time or space to take with me. Left literally thousands of dollars of shit and fled in the middle of the day to get away. Changed my phone number, blocked her on all social media, and moved in with 5 Filipinos in the shadiest neighborhood in my city. Contacted the police and submitted logs and logs and logs of harassing phone calls and other evidence in a preemptive strike in case she went to the cops and fed them a bunch of shit. So after reading all of that, do you still want to go after crazy women?
I had a schizophrenic girl I met in rehab stalk me for about 6 months. She would call me all hours of the night and day, and talk about the craziest shit, like for instance, how the government was flying RC drones into her window to leave written messages in her room, and how she saw a white dot on the hood of her car and she knew it was for surveillance drones to easily spot her. She'd show up at my house at 2 in the morning, and start throwing rocks at my window. She had told me how she called in a bomb threat to the courthouse in the town we live in, and she did it because she was protesting because she was arrested for assaulting a police officer. That was her 4th time being arrested for that. One day, I called her over, and told her that I want her to leave me alone and never contact me again. I was concerned that she was going to attack me, so I carried my Beretta in my waistband and had a sweater over it. She always carried knives. She did freak out at me, but didn't get violent, and after I walked inside I heard a loud crash inside my house, then heard her speed off. I didn't see any damage, but man, I was scared. Later on, a few months later, every day before I left for work at my job at UPS, would always see her parked on one of the main streets, right at the intersection of it and the street I live on, just standing outside her car and staring at me. It was the weirdest thing I've ever experienced.
I just got out of a relationship with a girl a couple months ago that was confirmed bipolar and probably had BPD. Groomed by a Minecraft streamer that was older than her. Anyways, it's just like all the other stories, constantly turning nothing into huge fights, not being able to handle anything when the intention wasn't on her. The big thing that everybody mentioned was after the fights they promised they will change and get better, but they never do, it just gets worse. There is so much truth to that. This thread made me very happy, not because others were tortured like me, but because others have had to deal with it, so I don't feel as alone. Now I'm the most straight person ever. I've never ever had a fleeting interest in anything gay. She was convinced I was in a secret gay relationship with one of my best friends. Apparently she had never heard guys talk to each other, and when we call each other things like friends or say suck it, she thought we were literally in some secret code language setting up sexual encounters. She secretly put up recording equipment in my apartment to try to catch me in the act. What she captured was me coming home from work, getting on my computer and starting to play Dota, and even though you can hear 35 minutes of me clicking a mouse with video game noises, apparently at some point I had been killed in the game and said, "Oh fuck me," and hearing that is what convinced her the new video game was purposeful background noise, and that is not my friend in, and that was me in the throes of nasty gay passion. That time, just like many other times, I should have broken up with everything in there, but the promises of getting better always kept me from doing it. I remember she just kept listening to me saying, "Oh fuck me," over and over for like hours, trying to convince herself it wasn't me getting railed by a dude. A lot of guys are claiming one redeeming factor for a while was that the sex was good. Well, not so much in this case. At first it was always whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. And she took better care of her body hygiene wise. But of course that started to slow down. Her shit would stink down there, and instead of just taking my request for her to freshen up as a request, she would get all bent out of shape and then nothing would happen. Eventually got obsessed with me being on top of her, which was fun, but I like to do other things like her being on top or whatever. She started keeping a tally to make sure things were 50-50. If I tried to put her on top of me, and she has been on top of me at any moment during in the last session, she would get super pissed and claimed that I was being selfish. I can pretty safely say that I'm not selfish in bed, just due to the fact that I am more turned on by them getting off than anything else. So it would make sense for me to do you want to get them off, make them satisfied. It finally ended when we were meeting up with some old friends of mine, another couple, at this one grocery store. When we got there, the guy was at his cart and the girl had gone off to the restroom. When the girl came back and met up with us, she greeted us both and gave us both hugs. Now would be a good time to mention that the past 3 or 4 days had been complete hell because she was having a huge bipolar episode. That included things like her getting drunk and screaming around my tiny apartment, being convinced that her emotions changed the weather, more gay thoughts about me and my friend, and the really new fun crazy of me being a demon that was slowly sucking out her soul. Well, anyways, my female friend gives me that side hug, you know, the one, the least sexual hug possible. Well, that caused my girlfriend to storm off into the store, and when I found her she just screamed at the top of her lungs, "Oh God, you're sleeping with her." Of course I wasn't, but anyways, she says that we're done and that she's always hated me, which she would always say when we were fighting because I would always try to calm her down, blah blah blah. Not this time, I said, "You're right, we are." The immediate look on her face was the biggest look of fear and anger I've ever seen. She says she's leaving, and then it hits me that my keys are in her car. We had taken her car because I had been out helping my mom with her cell phone and she had picked me up from my apartment. So while she's running towards the exit and I'm following behind her because I want to get my keys out of her car, she starts screaming for help. He's trying to assault me. Since she gets away with my keys, my friends thankfully drive me to where I thought she was going, and it turned out I was right. I had to hang around her car for a couple hours until she came back to it because the police wouldn't open her car to get my keys. When she came back to her car, I had been out of sight, and when she opened her door I bolted towards her and grabbed my keys, and GTFO, I also want to mention she treated me like shit the entire relationship, the classic everything's fine 1 minute, now I'm screaming at you the next. I'm trying to lose weight to join the military, and she kept tempting me with unhealthy food because she didn't want me to leave her. I actually ended up gaining about 50 pounds while I was with her that I'm finally starting to shed. Anyways, she started showing up at my work and calling me constantly trying to talk, and I wasn't having any of it. I ended up calling her brother-in-law because he was the least crazy person in that family and told him I was going to call the police the next time she contacted me. The calls and everything stopped after that. I still get jumpy when I see the same make and model of her car. Constantly looking over my shoulder. I'm sure I'll come down in a couple more months. I've just never dealt with crazy like her. Any of you guys that keep saying you want to date crazy, you don't. Why put yourself through that? It's a living hell, and just like another Anon said, mental instability is my biggest turn-off now.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.